This is Motivation. I'm Lori Joy Kingwell.
And I'm Chrissy Van. We're two dreamers on two wheels inspired by our community.
And celebrating the voices we're just lucky enough to discover along the ride. So if not already, like, subscribe, follow along, do what you gotta do to not miss an episode. Today's episode's called Pride Along the Ride. In the motorcycle community, there's so many different types of bikes to choose from. You got cruisers, sport bikes, touring, dual sport. The list is just extensive. And often the type of bike you ride, well, it comes with this stereotype and people seem to label you at times. Well, the thing is, no matter what you ride, you're still just a motorcyclist. But that identity is what unites us as a community. And labels and expectations, woof, do they exist with us humans when it comes to gender identities. Our society has set out these ideas about gender roles and what to expect and how to behave and how to present yourselves, and that there's male and female only. These generalized views are not only outdated, but they are ill-informed, and they certainly aren't reflective of the inclusive society that we hope to be a part of. Often, the best way to learn is to listen. So on today's podcast, we're so excited to have a very special guest on the show, our friend Skylar Love. Skylar's an advocate for the trans identity rights and came out as a trans non-binary person about 6 years ago. In partnership with Elitas Vancouver, they hosted Vancouver's first Queer Pride ride this summer. From the competitive skateboarding to professional DJing, they boast many talents. But the most motivational qualities is their massive heart and powerful resilience. This is your motivation.
I want to get this conversation started with the words of our guest, Skylar. So I'm actually going to start this off with something you wrote on an Instagram post lately that I thought was really powerful. And I quote, "I will never conform to the binary of gender. Had I known the term non-binary when I was 5, that's what I would have chosen. It took 25 years to feel at home in my identity. That's a long time to feel lost. 7 years later, I celebrate feeling the most like me I ever have. Here's to all my non-binary peoples out there. I see you and I'm here for you. Skylar Love." Sky, I'm so excited that you are joining us today because I think one of the biggest things that Lori and I both admire about you is how vocal you are for your community and so many other people's communities. When there is something that you believe in, you never falter at a chance to put your voice behind it. And not everyone feels that they can put themselves in a vulnerable position to do just that. It's often quite intimidating, quite scary to have your voice heard in that way. So people, get ready because there is a lot to learn in this conversation. So based on that quote, I want to begin back to 5-year-old Skylar. Talk to me about what feelings you had, what that time in your life was like, what you felt that maybe didn't align to how society was trying to identify who you were and what you should identify to be.
It was a really powerful time for me, being 5 years old and really just first kind of learning about what was expected of being born female. I was born in the 80s, so the patriarchy was roaring strong. Misogyny was at an all-time high. And I grew up with the TV as a bit of a babysitter. So I'm just taking in so much sexism and the perpetuation of gender roles and just kind of like the weakening of the female entity. By the time I was 5, I was quite literally petrified to be born female. I felt so scared because everything that media and the people even around me, even my grandparents were telling me what a female is or what's expected, none of it felt like it aligned with me. None of it all felt so wrong and really quite scary. On sort of the darker tip of that, also just seeing in media the abuse of women. There was always, that rape scene or that abusive husband scene or that, and in the 80s, in drama, in movies that were like kind of like drama-based films and stuff like that, the female was often in this sort of like lower, less than role, like constantly. It wasn't until the 90s that we started to see some like power female roles and things like that in film. So my whole conception of like what it was to be born a girl was quite scary and quite sad. And then not only that, but like, as a kid, you're told, oh, like you can't play with trucks, or girls wear pink, or, you can't go fishing, or you can't climb a tree, those types of things. That being said, essentially in society, back in the 80s, there was this one little sliver of hope for me, and that was to be a tomboy. It was acceptable to be a tomboy when you're quite young, although I was really teased for that, and it was still something that was not overly accepted. It was still there, and I held on to that sliver for dear life and blew it up as wide as that sliver could go and held on to it. It was the only thing I seemed to have to feel remotely safe and remotely like I could start to express myself the way I felt inside. I told my mom straight up. I went up to her when I was like 6 years old and I said, Mom, I don't want to be a girl. Like, I don't. And that's sad to me, because all those fears and all those layers, like it's really, really sad. If I had known I didn't have to conform or do any of the gender stuff at 5 or 6, that would have been me. So, moving along through being a tomboy, I went to the extreme. I shaved my head when I was 6. I didn't want any long hair. I only wore boys' clothes. I did anything a boy could do. I wanted to do it better.
I love that.
I was actually only friends with boys because I couldn't relate with girls. Luckily, my mom just let me run wild with it. Like, I was really lucky. She didn't try to tell me what to do. She just was like, "Okay, this is what my kid wants to do," and she just kind of let me. Even when I started to skateboard competitively, I remember I was like 12 years old, and people would come up to me and they'd be like, "There's a girls category at this skate comp," and I'd be like, "Excuse me, what? A girls category? No, thank you." It was really weird, but I always had this deep inner knowing that what I felt about me was right. And I don't know, how does a young kid have this? I don't know. But it was like, I knew they were wrong. I just knew it. And I kind of had this thick skin about me, and kids would just try. They would try to tear me down. They would try to steer me another direction. Even school teachers. My mom would get letters from school teachers saying there was something wrong with me. Well, I remember when I was 7 or 8, I got a mohawk. This was 1995 or something. And even maybe 93. The teacher wrote a letter home to my mom being like, your child's too much of an influence. They're too much of a leader, that she needed to get me under control, and that she shouldn't let me have this kind of hair, and that I should be dressed as a girl. And it was pretty crazy.
You weren't the leader and the influence that the structure needed you to be.
And even though I got bullied, secretly the kids wanted to be like me. So they would go home and tell their parents, Mommy, I want purple hair. Mommy, I want a mohawk. And the parents were actually calling the school and complaining about me.
What did the support of your mom mean through all of that?
That support quite literally meant the world to me. My mom was a teen mom, and I think she was young enough and felt close enough to the suppression of women, had quite literally experienced bullying as a kid herself. She was the black sheep of her family. And so I think because she was so young when she had me, she was close enough to that younger sort of rebellious age of, I'm going to look and do and be and act however I feel is right for me. And when I got my mohawk, my mom decided she wanted a mohawk too. So
yes.
Amazing.
Oh, what an amazing person.
Are you hearing this, Darlene? Where was your mohawk?
Mama Van's getting a mohawk.
She did. I got a bright pink one, and she got a purple faux hawk.
Oh, that's incredible though, because in one sense you look at that and you're like, what a small stride that speaks mega volumes. It's showing up for someone in your life to be like, I want to support. So obviously you've had this incredible inner knowing and inner gift. Tell me a little bit about your journey to really discovering within the community the term non-binary and realizing this is finally something that identifies with everything that I know of myself on the inside.
From, being a kid and going through all of that, when I got to about, 13 or 14, it was kind of like, hey, it's not okay to be a tomboy anymore. And this is still like 1999, right? Like this is still, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it feels like yesterday.
I know.
Doesn't it?
When I say 25 years ago.
The most depressing fact of this podcast.
I was like, yeah, a couple of years ago. I was
Yeah, a couple of years ago. So when I was like 14, I was like, okay, this isn't acceptable as much. And in the 90s, and I had the pressures of sexuality. Who do you like? Do you like boys? Do you like girls? Like personally, I always had crushes on girls ever since I was like little. Like I remember my first kiss was with a little girl. So when I was like, I think we were like 8 years old and we played house and we kissed and I was like 8, I was like, I'll be the dad. You be the mom. And yeah. And, that was when I started feeling the pressure to conform more. And it became really intense and I would sort of ebb and flow. So like I would look more feminine and I'd wear a bra and I would try to grow my hair out. And I would think that I need to try to pass as a certain way because being bullied of like, what are you, an it? Are you a he? Are you a she? What are you? Like when that's constantly happening to you through high school and through life, it gets really, really confusing. And I was really confused. And so I just kind of like went through it all and I would just sort of ebb and flow back through it all. So I'm turning 38. So this was about 8 years ago. And I was just like, I'm just done. Like I can't keep being what I think I should be or what everybody else wants me to be. Like I need to like go inside, revert back to being the 5-year-old me. And who is that little person inside? And that little person inside is, I felt those feelings of non-binary, but I didn't have the language. I just was like, I must be trans. I must be transgender and between genders. And like, I started using the term androgynous and I just basically was like, you know what? I found my people. Like there's more people that speak how I do, that say the same things I do, or have similar feelings I do that are in the trans community than any other community I'd ever found. And so for me, that was when I started to find my roots where I was just like, I'm trans. Like that's where I'm at. And so I came out as trans. I hadn't even, still hadn't learned the term non-binary. And back then it was being trans, like you mostly saw people transitioning fully, like female to male. Okay. The FTM it's called. And I knew that wasn't me. Like I knew I wasn't female to male because I'd always been in the middle. And I just kind of still sort of hung around in the umbrella of trans and trying to find my people. And when I came out, I learned about a term called transmasculine. And those were people who were like, never going to pick a side, but physically on the external, identified as being really masculine. That was me. I was like, I'm transmasculine. Cool. Finally. Oh my gosh. Like I can talk to other transmasculine folks. Like we relate. Like I feel like I'm coming home to something. When I came out as transmasculine, I shortly learned about maybe like a year later, I learned about being non-binary. And when I found that term, like that was it for me. Sort of like in doing that was just like this whole other part of my life just like launched forward. And I could finally just feel comfortable in being me and really just start to pursue my dreams on such a deeper, more profound level. And, that's when I started, Babes on Babes. That's when my DJ career really took off. That's when my career in fashion and, throwing, all kinds of different events. And, my advocacy work really picked up then. And that moment in time really propelled me forward to, being who I am today as well. And how I'm able to be an advocate, how I'm able to be truly actually happy. I just want to support everybody to be able to find that inner self. And even if it's like not anything to do with being trans, if it's like one thing I love about the Litas is how it's like we help, female or assigned at birth women find their voice in riding a motorcycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We support them in discovering this like new journey and this new aspect of themselves. Like that's so powerful. And that in itself is kind of like going through a transition, you know?
Oh, it's changed my whole
Yeah.
life meeting spectacular people like yourself, the entire
Yeah.
community. I mean, Lori and I reflect on this all the time, how it's literally one of the greatest gifts I've received in my adult life. I am so grateful to learn from this community. I am inspired by this community. I mean, it really is the basis of why we started this, is to have these conversations and get a little glimpse of what makes each person themselves. And it's so damn special. And it's
Yeah.
so incredible to be able to dive into your journey. I want to know, you're talking about this momentum trajectory once you tapped into who you were, who you always knew, but really being able to lean into that. What was it like for you when you did the first Babes on Babes and all of a sudden everyone's just losing their minds on the dance floor and celebrating exactly who you are? Like, talk me through the emotions of that.
That was definitely it's cathartic moments, you know. It's because it's not just about me, you know. It's like I feel like I'm creating this space, this space for anybody quite really to walk into and go, I'm finding me, whatever the hell that looks like. What if it's about your sexuality, that, you know, people that maybe are like, wow, maybe I'm bisexual, or somebody like discovering that like they feel safe coming to Babes. Like they don't know what they don't care. Or maybe they have a boyfriend, they don't care. They're coming to Babes just to have a good time because they feel safe there. You know, it's like, I feel like we're creating this platform for community where humans can just come and be who they want to be. You know, it has to evolve for me past sexuality, past gender identity, into just like, I'm in a space where I can be free. I'm in a space where I can feel free. I can feel safe. Like that, those are the cathartic moments for me. When I look around the room and I can feel that, I can see it coming from every person when I'm DJing, when I'm playing music and everyone's just losing their minds. It's like, it's that moment where I'm like, yes, I lived my whole life to feel this moment with you all right now, you know?
There's so
Oh,
few spaces that are available to people to just feel ultimately safe and that they can be fully themselves, because it doesn't matter
Yeah.
who you are. The second you're born into this world, you're told exactly the construct that you need to fit within. And
Yeah.
every single one of us spent our childhood being told that we're not the free little people that we thought we were, that we know in our souls, and that we need to become these kind of robotic versions of, you know, like we just spoke of, you're a boy or a girl, so you need to dress this way and you need to choose these colors, and these are the sports you do and this is the lack thereof that you do. And then we kind of spend our 20s rallying against it and thrashing against the walls and just like angry but not knowing quite what about. And then we unpack it all, and this is what we kind of speak to, of like when you start to step into yourself and just be like, fuck it, fuck them, fuck it all. And there's this kind of, there's still these kind of selective few in the grand scheme that are stepping into this. But what you've just expressed and explained, and like you said, it ultimately has nothing to do with gender, sexuality. It's just this human environment of creating, of just going like, whomever you are and however you choose to express it, you are welcome here. And when the first time I went to the Babes on Babes, which I identify as her. I am married to a man, and I've never felt so free to just be in that space. I didn't have to look over my shoulder worried about any creeps. I didn't have to do, I remember I had a bra on with my overalls. I just
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know, it was just, and I went there. I didn't lose a shirt. I literally went in my bra. I can do whatever I want to do. And I won't be, you know, I was like, it won't be sexualized. I know I'm going
No.
to this environment where I'm free. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing. And another thing that we kind of speak to with the Lita's community, and finding any kind of community that fully accepts you, because it catapults you into the growth that you know is there, and you're working so hard to kind of unpack the fucking structures that just, just were demolished with by the time we're essentially 5 and 6. And the only other thing I just wanted to say to that was that this statement that you made at the beginning of the interview that really stood out to me was you said, when I was 5 or around that age, and you said to your mom, I said, I don't want to be a little girl. And you said, that makes me kind of sad to say that. And I could be completely off on this, but what kind of it felt like, or what my mind went immediately to, is like, it maybe wasn't so much that you felt sad that you didn't want to be a girl, as much as it felt sad that you had to spend this big chunk of your childhood having to focus on the fact that you were trying to separate yourself that was placed upon you that never belonged there in the first place, rather than having to step into who you were and kind of like the beautifulness that you were. You had to spend such a chunk trying to maneuver this, that part of yourself. And you're like, that's sad. That part of my childhood had to be about whether or not I felt proud that I was a girl or not proud, which I never should have had to decide that or feel like that was a choice I had to make in the first place.
Totally. Absolutely.
Where the sadness comes from, not the fact that you were or weren't, identified, was the fact that you even had to, that the weight of that by society was so prevalent that it was like, why is this something I'm having to even choose nor navigate? Because I didn't choose it to begin with. You're telling me I have to choose it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, my soul is going, that ain't it. But everything around me, adults, teachers, peers, they're all going, well, if that ain't it, something wrong with you. And you're going as a kid, no, I'm pretty sure not. It's not. But my soul's saying that's not the truth. And thank God you were just stubborn enough and had the will enough to just stay true to your soul.
Yeah. You said that perfectly. Yeah.
And now your soul is soaring. And I love that you added there, the minute you were really leaning to exactly who you are is where everything now, the momentum has built. Obviously, the momentum is chugging along incredibly because of your successful DJing ventures and creating safe community and spaces for people to just be free in themselves. You have so many talents. Skylar makes custom clothing. Skylar, all of a sudden I see artistic graphic design. I'm just like, is there anything they cannot do? And I love that they just keep expanding and surprising me at every corner.
You know what? I was going to say that, riding a motorcycle is one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to ride a motorcycle now. But in doing so, Lori was speaking to, just even if you're not trans, you're just like a woman born in this world, like you spend, majority of your 20s, like, trying to like break down like all the things, the stereotypes that the world says that, you should be. Well, one thing I really noticed in being in the motorcycle community is it kind of reminded me a little bit of the queer community. And it was that a lot of people in the motorcycle community don't want to conform. And back in the day, if you rode a motorcycle, it was like, you were just making a big ass statement. Like, I do not conform, especially if you were born a female. And that's that sort of like badassery that, I feel like when I see girls get on a bike for their first time and they feel so empowered, and it's just like, it's such a statement. And so I feel like there's such a power in this community. And it's such a great place to see women land, to see trans people land, non-binary people land, and feel, supported by not just only queer community. Because I feel like what happens is like queers kind of stick with queers, and you only go out to do queer things, and you get kind of like isolated. But what I loved about the biker community, and especially in Vancouver, meeting the leaders, was like, I'm now hanging out with all kinds of people. It's just not even it's not about our sexuality anymore. It's about not conforming. It's about finding our power. It's about finding our freedom and riding into the sunset with that together, Oh,
you gave me goosebumps. Because it's so true. Yeah. And you know what's such a good example of that? Skylar, as we said in the beginning, in partnership with Lita's Vancouver, hosted Vancouver's first queer pride ride this summer. There was an event after with our friends at True Grit Moto. And I was so bummed out because I worked for the first half of it. But I know as soon as you were putting that together, everyone wanted to be involved. And I just cannot wait to see where that goes for you in the future, because how powerful and amazing to see all of us together on our bikes, whether allies, queer, like everyone just coming together to just celebrate being yourself. That is what this community is. It's just being yourself.
Yeah.
And not everyone feels that they have the power to do that for themselves. And it's pretty damn amazing.
It is amazing. And it's cool because you just meet so many like-minded people and you just get so inspired by it, you know, like as soon as I met all you guys, I felt so inspired by all of you. And like so motivated. And I did. And it's, you know, it's a big highlight of my life when I started, and it is a highlight of my life right now. So I feel like the Pride Ride is like, I'm trying to make the power we feel and the power we know of the motorcycle community accessible to people who may have been too shy or too isolated or too, you know, kind of on their own with it, to go, hey, you know, like this is safe. Like you can come be here with us and like we can all go ride together. And that's what the ride felt like. When we did that this summer, it was just like we all had our flags out, and it was like you said, there's allies there and trans folks and queer folks, and we just all rode together, and it just felt so damn good. So yeah, I'm excited for future stuff, and excited for more rides, and you know, excited for life.
We're so excited to see where you go and to be a part of the ride of that journey, Skylar, wholeheartedly.
Yeah, guys, you know what? I really do feel that from you. I feel so much love and support from you guys. I really appreciate it a lot.
Always. And I can't wait for some babes on babes back.
Hey.
It's all done. I'm just like, oh, we gotta get back in.
Hey, you know what? Guys, a little plug here is that I'm actually DJing the Dream Roll 2022. They asked me to DJ. So I think we need to like posse up
your
biggest, the biggest, you know, Vancouver like posse that we possibly can, and roll down together.
Oh, I'm so stoked. Is this top secret information?
It's not top secret. It's been out.
Yes.
And are you guys coming or what?
Well, now I feel like this is a non-negotiable, like already exciting event. Got even more exciting.
Yeah.
Right?
Amazing.
And for those of you that don't know, the Dream Roll is like an all-women's motorcycle campout. It happens in Washington. It'll be in August 2022. So it's going to be pretty friggin' epic. I can't wait.
Well, Sky, you kind of touched on it, but Lori and I do something every podcast, and it is called our
Motivation. No, I missed it. Maintenance.
And essentially, it's a tool based on our conversation that people can take with them, put it in their toolkit to get them through a day, inspire them in a moment, or an exercise to basically help put them on a path, in this case, of really tapping into our true selves. So what would be your motivation maintenance, Skylar?
I would say wake up tomorrow morning and whatever it is that you think you should be doing, stop. Just stop and listen, like tune in for a minute, like take 5 minutes, take even 2 minutes, just sit there and just tune in. And if it's like something as simple as like wearing a different pair of shoes, you know, to what you may be like, what your attitude may be at work the next day, to whatever it is, whatever you feel like is making you conform, stop. That's my toolkit. And start with the little things. Start with little things and slowly stop conforming. Whatever that may look like for you. You know, if it's like you work somewhere and it's expected you should wear heels and you don't want to friggin' wear heels, don't wear heels to work. If you work somewhere and you feel like, you know, suppressed by your boss, truly think about getting a new job. Like don't just accept what you think you should and stop being who you think everyone thinks you should be. And like I said, start with the little things, and that will slowly build you up. And like follow your instincts, follow your gut, and follow your intuition on who you are and who you want to be, and look for people who give you that permission to be you. You know, it's like as a kid, like, you know, Sinead O'Connor, like she shaved her head, and I remember being like 6, 7 years old and hearing people calling her like a dyke and like making fun of her and just degrading her. And I just remember thinking how cool she was. And I didn't listen to what all those people said, because I saw Sinead on stage singing Nothing Compares. And I was like, you're amazing and you're inspiring. And like, I loved it. So it's like, if all you have around you is like a celebrity, because let's say some people live in a small town and there's not people around them that can help them feel good. It's like find the celebrity, go on Instagram, go on, you know, find something that you can go and you see yourself in, and then hold to that for dear life. because if you do, I feel like you'll find your path, you will find your way, you will like summon in your people.
Do you have a quote to share, Skylar?
My quote is this: be you, everybody else is taken.
And again, Sky, we love you.
Okay.
And thank you so much for your time and sharing your story.
You're welcome. It feels nice to tell it. Like, it feels good to tell it. Like, you know, you don't realize your story until you kind of just sit and like tell people who don't know it. The whole, and in a nutshell, you know, the whole thing. It's like, wow, holy crap.
That's my favorite part of this, honestly.
Yeah.
Like we just get to know people on such a different level, and I learn something every single time. And as I say, this community just keeps me so inspired. So I really appreciate you giving us the gift of your time. Like, truthfully.
I appreciate the gift of having the platform and for having people who want to hear it, you know.
Slowly but surely.
Well,
oh my God. Well, folks,
is your motivation. You've just listened to the Motivation Podcast with your host, Chrissy Van, and me, Laura Joy Kingwell.
Thanks for joining us along the ride. We've got new episodes dropping every Monday, and we're all about community. So follow us on Instagram at Motivation Podcast and visit our website at themotivation.com.
And in the meantime, tanks full and full throttle.